Good morning, Andre.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday. In the morning, you're supposed to be relaxing after a busy week already, and then you join our show and share your stories to our audience. And on behalf of the listeners around the world, we want to say thank you to you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor. You obviously messed up my Sunday morning, but it's fine. Maybe it's even a better Sunday morning thanks to you.
Yeah. And we've been interviewing experts in 125 countries in all 7 continents. And today we're going to deep dive into your story. People in Vietnam and around the world may know about Andre already, but they may not know about the journey that leading to what you do and leading to today, right? So this conversation is designed for them to know a little bit more about that. So you can share your life advice, wisdom, and the story that can help people to learn and to grow. How does it sound?
That sounds like a lot of pressure.
It sounds like something that getting your Sundays a lot better also, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I try to find the best words to describe to our audience about you and who you are. But then I think it's best for our audience to have you to do it for them because my word is limited. Okay. And would you please do the honor to share a little bit about who you are and what you do for our audience, please?
Okay, in principle, I'm a hotelier. I am originally from Germany, respectively I grew up in Switzerland, so I have a Swiss passport. I studied mathematics first. I really wanted to become a historian, archaeologist or astronomist. But when I was like 15 to 17 years old, I changed my mind and I decided to become a hotelier. And that's what I am now. I made my way up. Being a chef first, had to learn the hard way. That's a story on its own. And then went through the rank, traveled to some countries as it is in my profession because I decided to work in the international hospitality. And now I am for nearly 15 years a general manager. And I'm already 10 years in Vietnam. And I was very, very lucky in Vietnam. Things worked out very well for me. I'm quite well known in the hospitality and tourism world in Vietnam. Yeah, I would say that's it. I'm very simple, humble life.
Yeah. You look at my finger, it was counting how many seconds that you introduced about you and your journey. And you have a phenomenal journey of decades working in the hotel industry, traveling the world, working in different continents, build new and beautiful places and grow talents around the world, right? And you introduced to us in less than 2 minutes. And it's not fair, Andre. Okay, it's not fair for our audience. So this conversation, we're gonna dive deeper, like I said earlier, right? So I lead the way. When I was born here in Danang city, and then in Hoa Khánh, so Liên Chiểu area. And when I grew up, this city is poor, small, and I grew up in a very poor, small family. And my early dream when is to become an astronaut. Really enjoy going to the moon and see how bright it is up there, right? So for you, when you were little, what was your dream about the future work that you are going to do?
Well, you see, we are actually very similar in that because the idea of studying astronomy came originally from the idea that I was fascinated about the astronauts. But I wasn't so much fascinated in being an astronaut myself and going up there on the moon. I was more like fascinated what's behind. So, right, the astronomers do all the hard work. Nobody talks about them. They make all the calculations. They discover the universe. And then you have Neil Armstrong putting the flag in there. And he does actually the smallest of all the work, right? And he gets all the glory. But in that sense, we are very similar. 2 things. I wanted to be either an astronomer, exactly because of this, because I wanted to know what's behind. As a kid, I would go on our balcony. We had a huge terrace, in fact, in the cold winter nights. I grew up in the pre-mountains, as we call it in Switzerland.
Pre-mountain?
Yeah, which means basically not on 3,000 meters, but also not in the flatland. So I was like on 900 meters already.
So somewhere in between.
Right. Yeah. And there, in the winter time, when the snow is and it's cold and crispy and it's up country, the stars are clear. They are so clear. So I would actually spend time with the pullover in the middle of the night and watch the stars and identify the stars with the name. So that's one thing. And the other fascination I developed when I was a kid was archaeologist. And that was the beginning of the history. And I still remember I was like 6 or 7 years old and I went to that library. I loved books since early childhood. I went to that library and there was this book with the, how you say in English, with the tooth tiger. You know, the tiger tooth, right? Yes, you know, the tigers which lived, 80, 90, 100,000 years ago. And that was very fascinating. So I took that book, you know, and that opened up to me 35 years, 40 years ago, the world of the dinosaurs, but also of the mammoths and all that. And from there into the history of mankind, into the history of culture, into the history of philosophy, you know, all of this. So when I was like 12, 13, it was clear, either astronaut or archaeologist. Basically Indiana Jones style.
So the astronaut and what is the other name? How do you say it?
Archaeologist.
Archaeologist.
Yes, right? Yes. But mind, I am not American, so my English is the Swiss way of pronunciation.
I'm not American too, I'm Vietnamese, so my English you see is broken also. Right? So the archaeologist seems like still within you a lot because you told me earlier before the show about Hoi An and the Polish gentleman, and you've been traveling to do a lot of research and watching a lot about that, right? We're gonna get back to that at a later time in this conversation. I wanna bring you to the childhood dream because, you know, like, that fascination, that idea of becoming like an ontologist or the astrologist, where is that seed coming from in your family, or that's something that just Andre, the way Andre is?
I think that has a lot to do with the history of the family, not directly the family influence, because my mother gave me a lot of choices. My father left my mother when she was pregnant. So I only grew up with my mom, as a single mom, and later on, when I was like 8, 9 years old, and I met my stepfather, he was a simple man, he was a painter, I mean, houses and stuff, not like artist. And at that time, I already had built that interest. No, you see, my family comes from East Germany. I mean, what used to be East Germany as a country, and my family were refugees during World War II. So when the Russians came, they escaped from Leipzig, area Leipzig, and they went to Bavaria, surrounding of Munich, because another branch of the family lived around Munich. And when my mom was with me, around the age of 3 or 4, she decided to go and work in Switzerland because the income was better in Switzerland than in Germany. It still is till today. And as such, I ended up when I came up country in Switzerland. I ended up that everything with me was wrong. What do I mean? I grew up as a German in Switzerland. At that time, that was tough.
Yeah.
There was a deep distrust and disrespect from the Swiss towards the Germans. That was in the 80s. I mean, you know, kids can be brutal, let's be fair. But of course, kids say in school what they hear from the parents during lunch or dinner.
Yeah.
I was a Protestant, religion-wise, and I came into an area in Switzerland where everybody was Catholic. I do remember we were 42 kids in the class, 2 Protestants and 40 Catholics. So I was different there as well. First, when my mother came to Switzerland, she moved to town. And from town, we moved up country. So I had the slang of a town kid. So again, you know, I was a town boy up country. And remember, I was born out of wedlock, meaning my mother was a single mom. And in that village, everybody knew that. So there comes this German guy is wrong. This Protestant guy is wrong. He speaks like a town boy is wrong. And his mother is not married. It's wrong, you know. So I had a very, very tough time the first 2 to 3 years up there being accepted. And that makes you questioning why.
Okay.
Why do they not like Germans? What is wrong about being a Protestant? What is wrong about me speaking with the slang of the town? And that's when you come into history. You know, culture, you try to understand. So you culture, history, and. And parallel to that, you actually notice, yeah, the more I know, the more I understand, the more it makes sense. I don't agree, right? I don't have to agree. Now it's much better, I have to say, but I don't have to agree at that time that the Swiss were anti-German. You know, but at least I understand why they are anti-German.
Yeah.
And then you start developing an interest, the moon, like you, right? Astronaut and all that. And you actually realize, wait. There must also be a reason.
Yeah.
Right? And then you come into astronomy, because astronomy is basically trying to explore the borders and also trying to find the reasons. Why is the moon turning around the Earth?
Yeah.
Right? What is a supernova? Why is that star shining slightly in blue? Why is this star brighter than the other one? Yeah.
So you lay down on the ground, looking in the very clear sky and starting to have those early dream of becoming an astrologist and also in quest to understand about life, about who you are, question about all of the challenge you as a kid be facing off with at young age in life.
I think I learned to break down everything into a fundament of knowledge. Nowadays, you would probably say a fundament of data, right? And that's also why I studied mathematics first. And based on these facts of history, facts of mathematics, of physical laws, and based on that, then you start to build your view of the world. And of course, you add on top of it emotion, something which I had to learn. Because at the beginning, I tried to avoid emotions, because emotions were like something blurry, right?
Yeah.
And I only learned over time and by growing older that actually emotions are a beautiful thing. And you should not suppress them, you know?
Yep. Bring me to the age that you say that you started switching on to hospitality. Okay, because that kid had two different dreams, and now at the moment that turning. So you move into hotel industry, hospitality industry. So what made you decide to move into that?
I think my personality changed fundamentally with the puberty.
Okay.
You know, so the Swiss school system at that time was very rigid. Now it's much more possible to change your mind during your young age, but at that time, when you were 12 or 13 years old, you had to take some basic decisions. So I took the basic decision to go into a direction which was then called in the pre-university type C, which is mathematics. That was when I was 12. Looking back, that was very bad about the Swiss school system, because it's simply too early when you are 12. And up county, there were no possibilities to switch. And when I was 13, 14, 15, 16, like all of us, our body changes, our mind changes, the way we see the world changes. And look at me, I'm too lively to sit in a laboratory and to make calculations all day long, or to take a toothpick and to dig out a skull in the desert of Sinai, right? Yes. So that made me change. My change of my personality made me look for other opportunities. And then I possibly had the influence that my father was a general manager at that time in Asia already. I did not have much contact with him during my childhood.
Your biological father?
My biological father.
Okay.
My mother worked as a waitress and in hotels when she was a single mom. You know, she would give me to some families to stay with them while she went into the mountains to work during the winter season.
Did you come to see her during her work?
No, at that time I was a child. All the opposite. I was once for 6 months in a hospital in Switzerland under a plastic tent. So I only can imagine how my mom felt. She was in the mountains. They brought me down by helicopter as an emergency. And then for 6 months, she was not even allowed to touch me. So I was really in bad condition.
What happened?
I was something with my lung and the climate and everything. So they had to isolate me.
How old were you back then?
At that time, I was like 3-4 years old.
You were a tough kid.
I think I learned to be alone during that time, you know. But I feel more sorry for my mom. You know, looking back, it must be so hard.
know.
You're working for an life, and your kid is 80 kilometers away under this plastic tent.
Yeah. I'm sorry I was interrupting because you were talking about, you know, why you moved into the hotel industry, and I interrupted with questions. Let's go back into that.
Right, sure. I like that you should actually interview more politicians, because they always tend to go away, you know, and they say, no, let's go back.
So, hotel.
Yeah.
Yes. The question is, what made you decided to go to the hotel?
The change of my personality.
Change of personality.
The fact that my mother worked in hospitality before, the fact that my father was a general manager in hospitality, this all influenced me, but there was never ever a pressure. Right.
Yeah. Because I was curious, you could be economist, marketing, whatever else, but you become in this industry is because of influence from your father, from your mother. What else in there?
I think it was also the circumstances.
Okay,
you know,
what circumstances?
Well, ultimately, when I decided to leave the university, Kantonsschule is it called, I was already in my 10th school year. In Switzerland, usually you decide that at the end of the 9th school year. So, we were a little bit in a rush to find a future for me. You know, my timing wasn't exactly good. So, I also had to decide something to do right now, you know. So, the idea was actually for me to go to the hotel management school. And maybe through the hotel management school then to do something like work for the Red Cross.
Red Cross.
Right. You see, people working in the hotel management school, many of them afterwards are actually not becoming a hotelier.
Oh, really?
So they go to work for the United Nations, they go and work in diplomacy, they go and work for NGOs, because they have skills such as working in a multicultural environment, speaking with different languages, they learn calculations, they learn logistics, they learn hygiene and organizations, and these are all skills which are highly, highly in demand for NGOs.
Yeah.
And you know, Switzerland, Geneva, is after New York the second headquarter of the United Nations.
Yeah.
And with this you have all these international NGOs there trying to do some lobbying, right?
Yeah.
So that was originally a little bit my idea. So when I wanted to go to the hotel management school, I obviously had to ask my parents to pay for it, and they basically said no. And they said, you need to learn to work. Number one, Andre. So we're not going to pay you just the hotel school that you're one of those kids going to school. We know many of them, right? And number two, they said, look, Andre, whatever you want to do, you have leadership in you. You are an alpha.
Wow.
And with this, you need to lead people. You cannot lead people if you don't understand them. And
who say that, mom?
My father mainly, but my mom was on the same page. And in order to understand them, you have to be one of them.
Wow.
You know, so they said, you go and learn a job. You want to go to the hotel school, first you become a chef, or a receptionist, or a waiter, whatever, you go and learn. You earn 50% of the money yourself. When you have a proper job in hospitality, when you have the 50%, we give you the other 50% to go to the hotel school.
Wow.
So I was forced to find something, and I decided to become a chef.
Yeah.
So at that time, I wasn't an enthusiastic chef. I was more like, okay. But over time, and because I had the right teacher, I started to love being a chef. I got my passion to be a chef, and I made my way through this, yes. But the point is this, because I was a chef, I was together with other employees, sitting there, living there, sleeping in the bedrooms where 6 employees sleep together and all that. I really, really deeply understand how a rank and file employee thinks. And this is something which is deeply in the roots of the Swiss system. We even have it in our military service.
Yeah.
Look, for example, the difference between the Swiss military and the US military. In the US military, you go and you are being trained to become a lieutenant.
Yeah.
And you're never a soldier. right?
Yes.
So you become straight a lieutenant, and then you lead the soldiers. You lead your platoon, you lead your group of soldiers. But you've never been one of them. You actually don't know how they think. In Switzerland, it's not like that. You start
from the ground
you
up.
must. You are a soldier, then you are a corporal, then you are a sergeant, then you are a lieutenant. So once you are a lieutenant, you have been one of them, each level, and you know exactly how they think. That's deeply, deeply in the Swiss culture, in military, in government, and also in the way people are brought into professional life. And I really like that.
So it reflects perfectly your career journey also, starting at the ground and moving up, right? And you use this word, I really love it, Andre, is the word decided. Because earlier in this conversation, you said when you enter into the hotel industry, you decided to go international, right? And when you get into the work, you decided to becoming like a role in management so that you can understand and you can grow. So that determination, where did you get that idea or that mentality at early age? Because at that age, I was like really a playboy. I didn't know, about managing people or not, determine much in what I want to do in life also.
Well, let's say this way. I told you a bit about my childhood before.
Yeah.
And that I was an outsider in many ways. Of course, like I said, after 2 or 3 years, the people started to accept me. I had my friends and. But I never really got roots in that village. That is the village where I grew up, and I respect that, and I like the people there, but it's not my home. So in a way, I was homeless, so I was free. My home was Switzerland, but my home was not this village, and my home, because my mom and I were alone in Switzerland. We didn't have family.
Yeah.
The family was in Germany, right? So I think it was that freedom which made me, from the beginning on, think like, I don't need to grow up in that. I don't need to be the rest of my life in that village, and I don't need to stay here or there. And then I was maybe also lucky, the circumstances in life. It's not about planning. It's a lot about circumstances.
Yeah.
You have a plan, but very often the circumstances play into the cards of your plan.
Yeah.
You need that little luck. People tend to forget that. You can plan your life as much as you want. If you're not at the right time, at the right place, and you have that little luck that the right person is mentoring you, supporting you, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So the circumstances were, for example, when I started to be a chef, I applied in different places, to make an apprenticeship, as they call it. And then I found one. And this apprenticeship, they said, it's going to be 6 months in Lucerne. So that's a city in the flatland, and 6 months in the mountains. Because the hotel in Lucerne is closed in winter, and the hotel in the mountain is, it's closed in the summer, So for 3 years, because that's what you have to do. If you want to become a chef in Switzerland, you have to make a so-called apprenticeship for 3 years. So for 3 years, I was like summer in Lucerne, flatland, lake, hot, grass, beautiful, winter in Arosa, mountains, 2,500 meters, snow, skiing, ice hockey, both very touristic, one a city, the other one a mountain retreat and resort. Even there I was moving and traveling. So, and I have more stories like that. So I would say the childhood was already like, I don't have roots. And then when I grew up, into my profession, I kept on moving, not necessarily as a plan, but also the circumstances. And at some point of time, I said, that's my life. With limitations.
With limitations.
With limitations.
Okay.
Yes.
Explain more, please.
You said, at the very beginning of our conversation, you said something that Andre has been traveling to a lot of countries. And he is known to groom local talents.
Yes.
That's what you said.
Yep.
Now, honestly speaking, to some extent, this is a contradiction.
Contradiction.
Yes.
Okay.
And I explain you why.
Yeah.
I personally decided 15 years ago to step out of the international hotel chains. I started my career with Hilton and Four Seasons, but for the last 15 years, I only work for local hotels, preferably 5-star hotels, but directly for the owners. And the reason being is because I fundamentally disagree on this mentality of moving the managers every 2, maximum 3 years. And why is this system contradictory? Because I believe in when I go to a place, like for example now this hotel in Danang, that I am here to improve the hotel. I'm here to look what is good. Because obviously my predecessors did a good job. So I'm here to take the good and to add the Andre on top of it.
To make it great.
To make it better. Better in my opinion. I mean, another general manager, if I don't get the job, if somebody else gets the job, I'm sure he would also make the hotel better, but maybe he would shift into a different direction. That's our individuality. But I'm also here to groom the talents. Ultimately to groom the Vietnamese talents that they don't need me as an expert GM anymore. I cannot groom a talent if I work only 2 years in a place. So that's my personal opinion, okay? I do respect my GM colleagues and international colleagues who say, oh, Andre, I've been working in 10 different countries in the last 15 or 20 years. I respect them. I respect them as friends, and I believe in a way they are great professionals. But I fundamentally still question how good can you really be if you're only 18 to 24 months in a place. You're not building up something. In Malaysia, they call them the TNG, touch and go. Because they have this system at the highway. They have a card and it's called touch and go. Beep beep, the barrier opens and you move. If I come here to this hotel and I say, oh, okay, let's make a little renovation there. Oh, let's see if Rita can be groomed into a manager. Oh, let's do this. After 18 months, I go. Nothing is stable. You just touch the things. You just actually, start something, but you don't make it fundamentally working. And very often when you leave, it disappears within 6 months. And the talent you were growing, well, yes, the talent learned something from it, but most likely it's an unfinished job. So,
half done.
Right. So, long story short, have I traveled to various countries? Yes. But if you compare me with other places, other managers, I have traveled to less countries because I believe it's not the right thing to do.
You start that, actually, you've been there, done that, right? You've been traveling the world, you've been working in different continents also. If I look at, you work in Americas, right? In the Middle East, in Europe, in Asia, right? And then you say that you start to realize that if you keep moving like that, so you're not going to leave, the work done the way you want it to be.
Correct.
You start with a question. Okay. What made you ask that big question? Because, if look at other general managers, and with respect to them also, they move different countries following the chain that asked them to move. But you decided differently. So why?
Well, I guess here it helped to observe my dad.
Okay. Oh.
Because, of course, he did that, right? And also to listen to his stories. Because my dad was the pioneer generation. Those were the hoteliers coming to Asia in the early 70s. They built Pattaya. They built Borneo. They built Singapore. These are, in the hospitality, the legends, the pioneers. And he was one of them. And I was lucky enough, I didn't grow up with my dad, but when I was like 14, 15, 16, I would travel to see my dad on holidays, and he would introduce me to those people, and I would listen to their stories. And two things I noticed. Number one, that if you really want to get to know the locals, you're not doing that when you work for Hilton. And this is nothing against Hilton. I worked for Hilton in Morocco. I worked for Hilton in Egypt. But you're actually in a bubble.
Yeah.
You know, you are in a Hilton system. You know, that's why, for example, you have fantastic Hilton general managers. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
But when they move to a local hotel group like Sun Group or Win Group in Vietnam, most of them fail. Not because they're bad, they're very good, but they are not compatible to adapt to a local culture anymore in the way it is required. They are in an international bubble and they work with locals, but within the Hilton bubble. So they only touch the surface. It sounds very hard, but that's I'm convinced, I'm very sure that's the way it is. Because like I said, you can compare that with a soccer player. You have a very, very good soccer player and he plays for Bayern Munich. And now Inter Milan buys him for a lot of money. And this amazing player goes to Inter Milan and it doesn't work. Right?
Yep.
Because somehow he's still an amazing player, but somehow the chemistry, the style, the city, the environment.
Yeah.
And afterwards he's moving to Paris and he's an amazing player again. And that's the same. If you take a Hilton general manager into a local environment, it doesn't work. And if you probably take me nowadays, after so many years, and put me into a Hilton environment, it doesn't work either anymore. You know? So the desire to work with the locals, to understand the locals. Now we go back to my history, right? To understand the culture, to live with them, to see how they live, actually made me living this system of moving. And the second reason is I observed loneliness.
As a child, yeah.
No, not as a child, but of these GMs. When I spoke to these managers and vice presidents, when they were 60, 65 years old, they were pretty lonely. Because, I mean, be realistic. You work in 10, let's say in 15 countries in 30 years. You don't have real friends.
Yeah.
You know Ahmed in Cairo, and you can go and meet Mimi in Bangkok for a coffee, and then you go and laugh with Min about the good old days in Kuala Lumpur. You have colleagues all over the world.
Yes.
But friendship? No, because you kept moving. Where do all these GMs, vice presidents, we're not only talking hospitality, also other foods. Where do they usually end up? Most of them end up at the place the wife comes from. If they married a Filipino, they retire in the Philippines. If they married an Egyptian, they retire in Egypt. Few go back to their home country. There are exceptions always, but the vast majority, why? Because while the wife has a little social environment and the family, the husband actually has started to become solely dependent on his wife.
Got it.
So it's an observation from me. And I still see it, you know. So, no, I said myself, I want to build my own life. I want to build my own friendship. I want to be immersed in the local culture.
That's beautiful. You look at your childhood, you moved to, your mom moved you to Switzerland, right?
Yeah.
And as an outsider, from religions, from the origins, and then from the family, situation also, you tend to be a lonely kid. And that lonely kid normally will growing up be a lonely person as well. But then you in the position that managing your life, helping other people, and you start to observe people and you say, okay, you don't want to be in that loneliness when you're growing up, when you get older, and you make change, right? I want to bring you to the moment you came back 15, 16 years old to see your father. Okay. And we're gonna, is it okay we mention about, his wisdom and stuff also?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So he came to to Thailand. You are the product from Pattaya also, right?
Yes, actually, I always say, I was fed during pregnancy with coconuts from Pattaya. That's how my mom told me. She said,
I was having coffee.
Andre, you had the coconut of Pattaya when you were in me.
So he taught you about first leadership lesson that, you go out, you work, and you're starting to lead the people, you build your team, right? And if you look at your father and if you remember another piece of wisdom that his life of traveling, of building, that has impacted your life.
I didn't grow up with him, correct?
Yeah. So what else that limitation of connecting that he gave to you for life of wisdom that's still with you now, you will appreciate that, you apply in your life?
From my father, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I need to be fair on that. I mean, I was brought up from my mother.
Uh-huh.
My mother was a single mom, and she really, really had a tough time to bring me up.
Uh-huh.
And even later, when my mom found my stepfather, it turned out not to be the best decision in her life, and it continued being a tough time also for me, because, like I said, there were a lot of issues with my stepfather. So, in that sense, the major force in my life was my mom. But of course, when I traveled and I visited my father and I observed him, and he showed me Hong Kong, he showed me Bangkok, he showed me Pattaya at that time as well, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, when I was 14, 15, and we're talking here the 80s. So it was a different world in that sense, right? There wasn't that mass tourism yet and all this. So that definitely influenced my thinking, very, very deeply. In terms of wisdom and all that, I would say it's really that I observed him actually.
Observe.
Yes, he was a very busy man. He was he was working very, very hard. I mean, he also enjoyed life, but you see, we never had that father-son relationship. For that, it was simply too late.
Yeah.
I called him dad, but that was more out of respect.
Yeah.
You know, while I called my stepfather with his name, I didn't call him dad. That was just because of the blood.
Yeah.
But the observation of how he lived with the people in Borneo at that time, you know, I mean, I noticed a lot of Vietnamese actually don't even know where is Sarawak or Borneo, even though it's just a 90 minutes flight away. The way he respected the culture there. I think that my Chinese stepmother, you know, I met her not very often during my holiday, but she gave me 2 or 3 wisdoms. Let me give you a wisdom I got from my Chinese stepmother, which indirectly through my father in a way, right? So, there was this very big problem once, and it stays with me till today, and I still use that sample when I speak with students, you know, and I was just totally stuck, and she tried to open up my mind. And then she said, okay, Andre, here is the Chinese wall. It's high, it's long, it's thick, it's deep.
The Great Wall.
The Great Wall.
Okay.
Right. I want you to go to the other side. Okay, so can I break it? No, it's thick. Can I climb it? No, it's high. Can I dig? No, it's deep. Andre, everything has an end. If you can't break it, walk around it. Go around the problem, find a solution, and then you still end up on the other side. You know, and I kept that so much in my mind. So this is my problem. I learned through that, I want to go here. I will go here. And maybe it takes me 5 years to walk around.
Yeah.
Maybe it takes me 2 days, you know, and that is also my management style, and also here, because this is a hotel which is 30 years old, and some of our employees here, not only here, like all over the world, they are very flexible and fast moving, and some others are very conservative and very slow moving. And my job is to understand what I want, what is good for the hotel, and then to achieve that with the necessary patience.
Yeah.
And there we are back to the touch and go GM. I can do things in this hotel. I can convince the owner representative in this hotel to do things which I cannot do if I stay only 2 years. Yeah. We are having now renovations and things which I'm asking for the last 3 years. And I keep on pushing and pushing, and finally he agrees on doing this, or he agrees on doing that, or it has to grow within him, you know. So that's what I learned. Be patient. Don't lose focus. You know what you want. If you can do it fast, do it fast. If it takes time, it takes time.
Yeah. It's patient.
Yeah.
It's a great value. It's
Absolutely.
a great virtue, right? You're gonna get, yes, you want to say something?
Maybe I can add on that.
Yes,
I was I was in a panel discussion last week
Okay.
about implementing AI in hospitality.
Ah.
And I was asked how I implement AI and technology in hospitality.
Ah.
And the key, what I said now as well is, I said, I am having 20 different trains.
Ah.
Each train is a department. Recreation, front office, kitchen, food and beverage, marketing, sales. And each train is an AI train.
Ah.
And each train goes with a different speed. I'm gonna go and implement AI within limitations in my hotel. But in one department, I can go fast because the technology is already better, or because the staff is younger or more open-minded. And in other departments, I have to go slow. I have 20 AIs, and some of them are going fast, and some of them are going slow.
So focus, know which one to invest. And it's all start with the word observing.
Yeah.
You observe your father, you observe the environment when you were little also. You observe life go in front of your eyes, why people see you differently, see your family differently, and started to build that capacity within you. You look at it, and you see that skill being honed for so long in your life that you start to, in the international hotel chain, you start to observe that, okay, maybe other general managers, they're having a lonely life when they are retiring, and you don't want to be like that. And you have what we call now is a newness intelligence, because that is something that not my wife and I developed ourselves. We interview so many great people. We interview astronauts, NASA heads of science. We interview political leaders, military officers, best-selling author, a lot of crazy and beautiful minds around the world, right? And they have the ability to lean onto newness, to really discover what's there, even in the oldness. Like this hotel been 1997, so 30 years, right? But you come in and you start to build something new out of that, make the best out of the existence, right? So that first letter N in the word newness stands for notice one new thing every day. So it's a practice.
Yeah.
And that relates exactly what you do for the observation. So, and the observation is a skill that not a lot of people have. Not a lot of people can, so if you look at your life and you can have sharing some insights that can help me, help Rita there, have a lot of people who listen to this conversation, being able to improve that ability to observe things in front of their eyes. How do you do that?
Well, you see, I was speaking at Toastmaster recently.
Okay. Where is that?
Toastmaster.
Toastmaster.
Toastmaster. I was speaking at Toastmaster. They asked me to speak about leadership and change. Nowadays, there's a lot about change because of AI, for example, right? And I spoke about two things, and that goes a little bit into this. I said, if things are changing, and things are always changing, it's life, it's evolution.
Yeah.
There is no standing still. Yes, as human beings, as primates, we like to keep things the way they are, but obviously the things will never stay the way they are. And if it's as simple as our body is changing, and because our body is changing, our lifestyle changes, and then everything around us changes as well. So, and I said, there are two things. The first thing is what we all know, what we all learn, change management. But, and I actually noticed, apparently I created that term, I'm not sure, it doesn't matter. I said the second thing what you need is stability management.
Stability
management. It's not only about change management, it's also about stability management. Two things about what is stability management for me. Number one, we touched it a little bit before. When you go to a place, observe. Don't go into a place like I have a new director here, a new HOD, department head, and I said to him, I want you to be quiet the first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't want you to go and say, do this and that, and I have a better idea. No. 3 weeks you be quiet, you take notes, you observe, because then the people open up. Because if you come in and I tell you immediately, oh no, you have to do different, you're killing everything, and you will not see the truth anymore because they start to behave differently. And you know, it's like Big Brother in TV.
Yeah.
The other thing is the new boss is coming, everybody is nice and shiny.
Yeah.
But it's like Big Brother, all the cameras, reality TV.
Yeah.
At the first 1 or 2 days, everybody can play a game. But over time, the personality comes out and they forget about the camera. Over time, they forget about the HOD that he's new and they show how they really work. Take notes, observe, be quiet, and then make your plan afterwards. And you will have such a long list, it will take you already 2 years just to tick off all the list. So, you go to a place, you observe, you decide what is good, stability, what is good, and you keep it. You keep it stable, and you build up on this. So, what is good is stability, you keep it, and what is not good, you change. Change management is about changing what is not working. Stability management is about keeping what is working.
Yeah.
You know?
It's going hand in hand.
Right.
Yeah.
And the same goes about the humans. If we are living in times of changes, let's talk AI, because my revenue management team, my marketing team is eventually worried about their future. Because AI is able to do the posters, AI is able to calculate the room revenue and, you know. So eventually people are going to lose their job. Eventually. So now you need to go back and say, wait, you don't need to worry. You need that stability, that calmness in you. Because if you're not calm in you, we all know that from our life. If we go to work and we are nervous, we are worried about our future, or something is happening at home, we cannot do a good job.
Yeah.
So you need to give those humans stability too. Don't worry. We're going to find a way. You're not going to lose your job because we're going to redefine your job description as a revenue manager because somebody still must control AI.
Yeah.
And the decision making, we are not going to give AI. So we need you in the marketing.
Yeah.
You can use AI as a tool, but the ultimate decision maker is you, the human. So this is stability management for me. A, keeping what is good and only changing what is not good. That is technically work-wise. And B, giving stability to the emotions of your employees.
How did you come to that term? I read a lot of books, talked to a lot of people, never heard of the stability management. And it's the obvious, right? But in the obvious, not a lot of us be able to observe and see it also. So how did you pull that out so beautifully to explain it to people, to help them manage change and create change that not gonna disturb the situation, but gonna enhance it and make it better for everyone?
I was asked 2.5 years ago to speak at a university, FPT University, to the teachers.
Okay. Here or in Hanoi?
Actually here in Danang.
Okay.
And they asked me to speak about change management. That's nothing new, right? I'm like, okay, seriously? I mean, aren't they not going to be bored? So I said, okay, fine, I'm going to update my own knowledge about it, you know, and I'm going to do some study. And then through this and through my own thoughts and preparations, I actually said, wait, this is not about change only. And that's how I came to that term. And funny enough, after this 1 hour talk, I had a lot of questions from professors from the university. And they even asked me, where can we find books about stability management? And I'm like, you know, I probably should write a book about stability management.
You must, yes. So, but you still haven't answered, you know, how did you find it? How do you, define that term? Because you look at the change management landscape again, right?
Yes.
To present 2.5 years ago at FPT University here in Danang.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you see, okay, maybe change management is missing some part in there.
Yeah.
Then how did you figure out that part of missing that you put stability management onto it?
I think logically speaking, stability management is part of change management. You know, when you want, I mean, that's for me, but I noticed I actually never really had that when I've learned it in school. I mean, for me, it's very clear. Before I change something, I don't go and say, now I change everything, right? No, I go and say, what do I change? So I'm already unconsciously saying this I keep stable, and this I change, you know? So it is somewhere inside there. But usually when people talk, then they say, okay, you know, they probably will say like, hey, you know what? If something is good, keep it. And now let's talk about what we change and how we change and how we teach the employee to change and blah, 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 blah. You know, and then I said to myself, no, wait, we are living now in a time where our life is fundamentally changed. We are in the fourth revolution, in the fourth industrial revolution, as they call it, right?
Yep.
Everything is changing. I know from, maybe again, back to me, I know from myself how it feels when you're insecure, when you're lost, you know, you need that stability inside. When things are changing, if, like I said, if an employee is insecure about his future, if he doesn't know if he's losing his job tomorrow, how do you expect from him to focus on his work? Yeah. You know, so give him stability. So how did I come to that? I think it's just putting bits and pieces together, giving more emphasis of this part. Again, coming back to say, GM changing every 2 years, that's not stability for the hotel. That's the first GM does this, the second GM does this, the third GM does this, you know, and then I guess it's the Heureka moment, like Archimedes, right? You are one day in the shower and you take a shower and say, stability management.
Because you've been thinking about that.
It's breathing behind.
Yeah, it's in
Absolutely.
your subconscious mind.
Correct.
It's already there.
Correct.
Yes. And normally I ask this question toward the end of the conversation, but since we mentioned about that, I want to ask you, because my wife and I, we're fascinated to help people to improve their ability to think. And conversation like this is one of the best ways for us to extract how they think and how the practice that they use to expand their ability to think. Earlier when we met, you say that you've been, went to the concert yesterday, to enjoy the opera, to enjoy the performance. Earlier today, before you came to the interview, you watched documentary to help you to expand your perspective of the world, right? So, question for you is, how have you been expanding your ability to think over the years?
I think I'm just curious like a child.
Yeah,
the world
tell
is
more.
the world is beautiful. I know, and I mean, for God's sake, why should I eat the same food? Why should I listen the same music? Why should I travel the same places? You know, don't get me wrong. I have my comfort food. I have my comfort music. We need that back to the stability.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's normal. That's human. But just because I love my Thai curry, that doesn't mean I cannot eat something else and try something new, which I don't know. You know, so I push myself, I force myself to try out new things. When I go to a restaurant, there is an item I haven't eaten before yet, and there is my favorite dish. I take the one I haven't eaten before, mate. Most of the time. Again, sometimes I want my comfort food too. That's human being. But most of the time, this cocktail. Let's say this, I go to a bar. I ask for the signature cocktail. And for God's sake, I hope they're not telling me my signature cocktail is a margarita or a mojito. I'm like, seriously, I expect the signature cocktail to be something new I never had before, you know. And the same goes to music, and the same goes to museums, and the same goes to theater. You know, you have to throw yourself out of the comfort zone. You heard that before.
Yep.
And just give it a try, you know. I mean, for example, the classic royal music of Wei, right? When you hear that for the first time as a Westerner, it's awful.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're there they do it like bolero and all that, you know, this sing-sang, and you sit there the first time as a Western and you are like, for God's sake, you know. I do remember there was this Vietnamese girl, she was in the show Asia Got Talent. Like America Got Talent, but Asia Got Talent. So this was in KL, and people could participate from different countries. And there was this Vietnamese girl, and I was told later she was really amazing. But she sang this old Vietnamese music from the royal court. And she totally failed. You know, because nobody in Kuala Lumpur understood that kind of music, you know. And I didn't understand that the first time either. And I was 4 weeks ago in Hue at the opening of a hotel, and it was performed again. And I learned by going 2 or 3 times to actually recognize the uniqueness and the beauty in that music. The first time I heard it, like 8 years ago, I wanted to run away. But I couldn't because it was an official event. The third, fourth time now in Hue, I actually can recognize the beauty in it.
What changed? What changed inside of you that's make you see the beauty?
Well, if you like it, and I don't like it, then maybe I don't look at it with your eyes. So let me try to look with your eyes.
Wow.
You know? Let me understand why this kind of melodies in your ears, in that sense, is melodious and beautiful, while in my ears it just sounds so wrong.
Yeah.
And then I start to looking at this, and then I discover your way of looking at the melody.
So that is the highest level of EQ, you know. It's called spiritual intelligence. Now you're starting to live in our soul and listen to the music from the soul of the singer, the pupil, the culture, and perhaps years of living different culture, doing, you know, meeting different people, that helps you to open that intelligence up. Right?
For sure.
What you just mentioned, all, you know, open to the new, you see the, you know, your food favorite here, but there's new food over here. Maybe you try the new food, preference to try the new one instead of the old one, listen to new music, meeting new people. That's newness in action right there. You see, you have that inside of you. And I want to use the conversation to encourage people to explore new things also. So if you pick one story in your life, it could happen anywhere, any work, meeting anyone, that's really help you to, you know, really enjoy the world of newness and help you to expand beyond your imagination about who Andre ever thought he could become. So which story can you share to help our audience to gain that confidence?
Just to maybe to come back, I just can encourage the audience. It's as simple as that. When you are on YouTube, try to break the algorithm. You know, sometimes go into YouTube, put some search words, and then there will be completely new speakers, completely new bloggers, completely new historians who will talk about certain subjects and go there. And sometimes I'm listening to YouTubers, and frankly speaking, I'm like, oh my God, I don't even want to listen to this guy. You know, he's not on my page. He doesn't reflect my values. And then I said, no, Andre, I'm gonna listen to this blogger for 20 minutes.
You force yourself.
I force myself to listen to that unreasonable person, for example, right? I just want to know how he ticks and what he says. Because again, if I'm in a debate and I want to bring good arguments, I need to know the arguments of the other side. So I need to listen to the other side. I'm not going to wait until the debate and then to find those arguments, you know. So yes, I encourage you, break the algorithm, listen, force yourself sometimes to discover new things on YouTube.
Beautiful.
But now going back to your question, I just elegantly tried not to tell you I didn't really understand what you're asking. So can you repeat your question again? I didn't quite catch what you really want to know.
A lot of people are afraid of change.
Yes.
Afraid of doing new things. And you look at their life. You go into new country, you build new teams, you work at a new place, do a new roles, join new events. And you're not afraid of that. You go in there with the mindset as a learner and explain and explore things and see what lesson they taught you, right? So you probably met a lot of amazing people, did a lot of amazing things. So if you pick one thing that you lean into the new thing, one story that when you, after you got out of that one, has changed you completely, changed your perspective, changed your way of living or doing.
One single moment which really changed my perspective.
Yeah.
That's
Could be a person, it could be a lesson, it could be anything, you know.
I lost everything once in my life. That was in Dubai during the financial crisis.
2008.
Yeah, I tried to survive, but yes, the crisis 2008. I left Dubai in 2010. I lost everything. I was really on the ground, and I had debts afterwards as well.
You had what?
Debts.
Oh.
So I was really, 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 really on the ground and had to restart my life from scratch. And I guess that really, really, of course, a very, very deep impact in me, that experience. It made me understand that there is no real security. No matter how hard you work, no matter how much you're trying to do, no matter what you're trying to do, you're actually always depending on others. You know, you can influence it as much as possible, but you cannot change ultimately when the world is changing around you, fundamental changes. So whatever you do in your life, take it with a pinch of salt.
Take it a little bit so.
Yes, don't, you know what? I would say it like this. What I learned there is, don't take yourself too seriously. You know? So now what I do is, I do it seriously. I do it very seriously. And I do it with passion. I do it with love. But I do it knowing tomorrow it could be gone.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not holding too strong on that. Then we are again back to your newness. So I actually learned this newness in that sense, you know, in a way of not newness about learning new things, being curious or whatever, but more about newness can also be like you can lose everything from one day to the other and you need to start again.
Yeah.
So whatever you have right now, it's temporary, you know. And look, let's be honest. I mean, I despite the history of me, my family and all that, I grew up in a protected country, Switzerland, you know. But look at the people in Danang, the flooding. They lost everything.
Yeah.
You know, so I lost everything in Dubai. There are people in Danang that lost everything last year with the floodings. There are people in the north of Vietnam, they lose everything. The mudslide comes, the house is destroyed, they lose everything. There are people in America, they lose everything because the forest is burning and their house is inside the forest. You know, I think that has had a fundamental impact on me. And I'm by far not the only person witnessing this. Look at all these people in the Ukraine. They had a normal life, everything gone.
And look at that, maybe that is also sit into your subconscious mind when you talk about stability, you know, like management also. So we look at what we can control and let go of what we cannot control, right? Yeah. Two last questions. Okay.
I mean, just to say, you need to be humble, you know? You need to be humble and you need to understand no matter how successful you are and what you achieved in your life. Besides that, you certainly worked hard for it and you hopefully deserve it and you're very good in what you're doing. You are lucky enough to achieve this in an environment with circumstances which played into your cards. Be humble enough. You can create a multi-billion-dollar company in Ukraine. If Putin decides to Ukraine, your company is gone. You know, so, and I meet often people where I miss that little humbleness. You know, I'm not questioning these people.
Yeah.
They're very good in what they do. But I wish they would say, you know what? I achieved this because of this. But yes, I had that 10% luck, or that 10% circumstances playing into my card, or I was born in the right country. I mean, imagine Albert Einstein would have been born in Kenya.
Yeah.
You know, we would have never had the relativity. So just the fact that I was born in Germany and brought up in Switzerland is one of the reasons why I am where I am.
Yeah. I think for sure. And thanks for reminding that. That's wisdom right there.
Right.
Yeah. And now travel time with me to two different places and meet two different persons. Okay. I want to bring you to the moment that your mother was working in the hotel for 6 months, that she couldn't see you because you was in the ICU, in the hospital for recovery. All right. So imagine how stressful, how she felt back then.
Yeah.
And then now you and me going to travel to that hotel. We're going to meet her at that stage of her life. And you have a words of wisdom, you have something that you want to share with your mother, that you want to share now with our audience. If you could travel through time and you talk to her, so what is that you're going to tell her then?
That she's an amazing woman, that I am incredibly grateful. I respect her so much. And because of the way she is, I have a deep respect for women. And I am not afraid of strong women. I had a lot of strong women in my life. I actually always look in my partnerships also for strong women too. And this comes through her.
Wow.
You know.
We asked about a piece of wisdom from your father already back then. So maybe one piece of wisdom from her that's staying with you up until today, going to be with you until you're no longer on this earth. What is that piece of wisdom?
Well, that's actually basically a very, very simple one. Keep on going, keep on fighting, never give up.
Wow.
You know.
She's amazing.
Yeah. Whereby with never give up, just to be clear, there is a time to give up in life.
Yeah.
Okay. Never give up on your dream, never give up what you want to do. But one of the things nowadays which I do not like on YouTube and is all these leadership gurus who tell you never give up.
Yeah.
You know, and all these successful people who tell you I am so successful because I didn't give up. Because I'm very happy for you, for example, not you, but as an example.
Yeah.
I'm very happy for you.
You're not happy for me there.
No, I'm happy for you if you have a company with 20 restaurants and you achieved that because you never gave up, even in the hardest of moments. But let's talk about the other 99 who never gave up and they lost everything.
Yeah.
You know, so when I mean my mom's wisdom never gave up is never give up on life, never lose hope, and there is always a way to achieve something. However, it is not never give up on that idea, never give up on that business, because my life experience showed me for one successful man or woman who never gave up, you will find 100 who did not give up because they believed into don't give up and they lost everything, and some of them are suffering for the rest of their life.
And that's where the humbling becoming important, the luck of life. We look at us as a product of the vast universe, and we're too tiny into that big universe, right? To appreciate life and appreciate the movement of life. So try to contribute best.
Right.
Like she also like can only do what she do best to support her family, to support you, you know, to raise you and to live with the circumstance in front of her, right? Now we're gonna meet you. All right. So that little Andre was rejected by his friends when he came to that little town. All right. And he lay down on the ground, looking into the sky, the beautiful, clear sky, and with a lot of questions about him, about life. Right. You and me are gonna sit next to him. You're gonna tell him something. So what is that you are going to tell him, Andre?
To the little Andre.
Yes.
Life is beautiful. Don't forget that. Never forget, Andre, no matter what happens, life is beautiful, worth living, worth enjoying.
Oh, you give me goosebumps. I love you. I thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. And life is beautiful. It summarizes all of that, right? So your mom tells us about don't give up. Have hope about life, have hope about people, have hope about the futures, and keep working, right?
You know,
Yes.
I watched a video, Davos, the Weltwirtschaftsforum, the Economic Forum. Elon Musk was there, and he was interviewed for 30 minutes. And they asked him, why does he want to go out of space? And he said something beautiful, which in all honesty, I didn't even think Elon Musk would say something like that. But he said, we have this gift of life. We are this little light in the darkness of the universe.
Yeah.
And as of now, we don't know if we are the only one. And maybe we are the only one. And the way we are going forward, maybe we cannot live on Earth anymore one day.
Yeah.
So it is our responsibility to bring this light of life in the darkness of the universe out of the Earth to make sure it can survive.
Wow.
I was like, wow, Elon Musk says that, you know.
He has his own way to bring light to the vast of life.
Yes.
You also have your ways to bring life to the vast of life also. Earlier you mentioned about why you want to be an astronaut, astronomy. You want to become the person preparing for the astronauts to go into the moon, to go out to space, to explore the universe, right? There must be someone on the ground doing that work. And the same thing for the clients to enjoy, Danang, to enjoy Vietnam. There must be somebody doing this kind of job to make the best of it, to bring change at the same time, bring stability.
Yeah.
So we all have our best ability to do something at best. So I really thank you for doing that. I thank you for sharing your story at Toastmaster, at university, at this podcast. And I'm sure you are doing a lot of that to help people to see things beyond their limitation of thinking, of seeing, right? So when we start to share, we start to, accumulate experience from one another, learn from one another. And I thank you so much for...
Thank you for giving me the honor to talk to me. I mean, after all these astronauts and famous people, you're spending some time with little Andre. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes. I'll see you again soon. And, my wife is going to come next week, and we would love to have a cup of coffee together in person.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.